What's up, everybody? Welcome to Coshun Cast here on a Friday, December 17th, as we get set for little Bucks basketball, little Packer talk. I'm Craig Coshun, along with producer extraordinaire James Stewart Jr. James, how are you this morning?
Doing well, and I know you're wondering. I had Fruity Pebbles for breakfast today.
You can have it for Christmas too if you want.
Well, I said Christmas today. Jay wanted them.
You're jumping the gun on me. What am I supposed to do now? On my agenda, that was my top of the list question.
I'm just trying to cut you off. Just keep you on your toes. Get ahead of you.
So you went really healthy the other day with your breakfast. What did you have again? You had eggs and avocado.
Eggs and avocado, and I did my job that day. And today I'm celebrating.
Now you're down to Fruity Pebbles by Friday.
That's the key. You don't got to do it every day. You just got to be good some days.
That's true. That's true. Well, a few things happening this week. The Packers obviously getting ready for their game against the Ravens. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But excuse me, Bucks in action this week. Very shorthanded Bucks team. Played really well on Wednesday. Let's see, they had 7 players out and had a tie ball game going into the fourth quarter against the Pacers, James, and all of a sudden went on a 21-0 run. Yeah. To be honest with you, I'd have to rank that as one of the most impressive wins of the year.
Yeah, and we talked about it during the game. My thought process was basically if they get into a dogfight, it's going to be trouble. But Drew never slowed down, and the shooting never slowed down. So, yeah, they put together a complete game without Giannis, without Dante, who was supposed to come back, without Chris. No Matthews, Lopez, a lot of missing pieces, but this team keeps chugging along.
Yep, for sure. Well, look, we're gonna talk more about the Bucks here. We have our first guest here on our show as we welcome in my TV partner on our pregame shows, the one and only Steve Novak joins Coshun Cast. My man, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. I didn't realize I was supposed to be having Fruity Pebbles this morning. So I'll be honest with you. I actually came down for breakfast.
Yeah.
Because my wife had been the one up earliest this morning, got the kiddos going. My daughter said she wanted one more piece of avocado toast, decided after one bite she was done. So I actually got the piece of avocado toast that my daughter decided she no longer wanted. So I actually had a great start to my morning.
Wow.
That's the key is you just cook what you want to eat and they don't eat it. And then you get to eat it in the end anyway.
I agree.
I remember the days when my boys were young, and this was a long time ago because I've got my oldest graduating from college this weekend. So that's a big event in our house, but it seems only like yesterday I was making PB&Js and they never wanted to eat the crust. So I'd make the PB&Js and I'd just smear it all the way over to the edges, and then I cut the crust, and that's what I would eat for lunch. They had the good stuff, and I got the crust, but I made sure there was some flavor to it. So.
Oh yeah,
and we'll take the scraps. We know as parents, It's just no longer about us in any way, shape, or form. We're just chasing the kiddos around.
That's right.
Eating their peanut butter and jelly crusts and just trying to keep them in school.
Yeah. But I will say James intentionally eats Fruity Pebbles, so there's something to that story. So
you just got to figure out the tricks. That's all.
That's right. So we were just talking. Started out our talk on Bucks basketball, Steve, and obviously on Wednesday that turned out to be a big win for the Bucks against really a full arsenal in the Indiana Pacers. They didn't have Rick Carlisle, their head coach, but. Maybe that's what happened in the fourth quarter. I'm not sure, but all the turnovers, 21-0 run for the Bucks, being so shorthanded without Giannis and Middleton and a total of 7 players and stuff. I mean, that was an impressive win for sure. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I honestly think it was 2 things. I think from the Indiana perspective, it was an embarrassing loss. I think just as we on the Bucks side, as we're preparing to do the pregame show and the game, we're thinking, hey, we got to kind of preface this with we're down a lot of guys. And although we talk about the Bucks have depth and all that, the Pacers had to be thinking, they're without Giannis, they're without Chris Middleton. This is a game we've got to win. And the Pacers, I feel like, have kind of underachieved all year, and it actually feels like for a couple years now. And for it to come down to the fourth quarter, tie game, you're the healthy team, and the Bucks are down 7 guys. Sabonis is still out there. Miles Turner is still out there. And the Bucks go off and dominate on a 12-6 paint scoring run. Like you guys had just talked about, a 21-0 run in the fourth quarter. If you're the Pacers, you got to think those are some difficult conversations in the locker room. And I saw they bounced back last game and beat Detroit. And you had to feel like that was clearly a response to the Bucks kind of doing what they did. But like you said, on the flip side, the fact that the Bucks had guys step up when guys are out, and we've seen it over and over again, but you just don't know when 7 guys are out if it's going to continue. But it did. I thought everybody from, Bobby Portis to, Jordan Nwora stepped up and had good games, and it just makes the Bucks continue to be fun to watch, kind of no matter the circumstance, which is really fun.
Yeah, Jordan Nwora specifically has kind of had some struggles shooting this year, I guess you would say. But it was good to see him kind of get aggressive and attack the paint. And like you said, it was 12-6, I think you said, the paint battle in the fourth. And which is even crazier considering, like you said, they have Sabonis and Turner in there. And Jordan Nwora is getting to the paint, had a couple dunks. Drew joked about him being blocked earlier in the game. But like it just – to me, it's interesting because whenever these things happen, it's not necessarily just that we see these guys play. I think, like, to see Nwora attack the basket like that was something new for me, at least. So hopefully these guys learn from that.
I agree. I mean, I think like you said, what was really cool was the fact that Nwora is definitely known as a shooter, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a spot up guy who can do more, but with his role, he's a shooter. He's a spot up guy. He's not going to play big minutes. But it felt like he had recently just had a DNP. I think his first DNP of the season. I think back to when I played. Look, when your manhood, your ability is questioned, you're not good enough, or you can't play, or we're sitting you right now. You're just waiting and dying for that next opportunity to get out there. And so, like you said, we saw him knock down a 3. But really, of his 15 points, they were all 2-point field goals, and it was him attacking. And, I think Drew was a big part of that. The fact that, he really was getting guys the ball in the right spots, not throwing it to him where they got 2 guys on him and then it doing nothing. He got the ball to Nwora as he's cutting in transition. And then I think you got to give Nwora credit. I feel like that chip on his shoulder came out, and he thought, I'm going to attack. This is my time. I put the work in. Now I'm going to go out here and prove what I can do in a game where there's 7 guys missing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he's on the team to do. And I think, as like you said, a guy like Nwora, it is exciting. He's a 45th pick a couple of years ago, and you can just kind of see that growth continue to happen where holes in his games are continuing to go away. And you got to think in the next couple of years, he can be a high-level impact player if he can keep shooting it the way he is and, really, I think, clean up some of the defensive stuff. He's showing growth for sure.
Yeah, we went through that whole when Drew compared him to kind of like a young Chris Middleton. So we went through that phase where we were like kind of high on him. But we've seen this year, I feel like he's been more actively on the defense. He's been more actively on the boards. So yeah, you're right. I think we have kind of seen, whether it's a huge step or a small step, we've seen a step forward, just in mentality. And I think, the shot, he's got such an unorthodox shot, but also like it goes in. Like, from what we've seen from him, like he's a good shooter, and I feel like that's going to come back around. But what do you think about like Drew? From what I saw, he was pretty aggressive going to the hoop, and I feel like his finishing at the rim kind of comes and goes. But he obviously had it going against the Pacers, and he needed to. He knew that he needed to kind of hold that scoring down because we usually don't see. Was it 26? I think he had.
Yeah,
we don't 26. See that very often from Drew.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say it because, the other day when Craig and I were doing James and you were doing the pregame show, I was sending a note to Craig before the game, and I was saying, look, the one thing that worries me about there being no Giannis, being no Chris, is, of course, Drew has to assert himself, has to play not better, but differently offensively. He's got to shoot the ball more. He's got to look to score. But I feel like there's so many point guards and teams historically that when that shift happens, or if it's necessary, you got your guy who's in charge of running the team, and it's a burden, right? To get guys the ball and make sure you run the offense. You're calling other guys' numbers. When you're not calling other guys' numbers, you're not necessarily looking for other guys. You're trying to score yourself because you do think it's the right thing for the team. It hurts the flow and the feel and the energy of the game, because when the guy who's a distributor is also the guy who's the most aggressive to score, I just think it takes the wind out of a lot of guys' sails, thinking, I'm not going to get a touch every possession. I'm not being looked for, versus the opposite of that. Or when you have a point guard that's coming down and he's looking to be pass first every time. If he gets to the paint, he's still looking to kick the ball out. He gets off on guys around him scoring. It's a different feel as one of those role players. I was one of those guys. When you're with a selfish point guard, Drew by no means is selfish. He just had no choice, because there's so many guys out, to be aggressive, and it changes the feel of the game. And in the last 3 games before that Indiana game, when Drew had shot 16 or more field goals, the Bucks lost. And so to me, it was kind of a worrisome spot to be in. But he ends the night with 14 assists to go along with his 26 points. And I think you go, this guy, Drew Holiday, is capable, as we've seen so many times over the years, of doing all of that. And I think part of that is always based on who is he delegating to? Who is he getting the ball to? Are those guys capable of knocking down shots and, being effective? And so with that many guys out, to be honest, to have, Pat Connaughton and Bobby Portis and Warren, all those guys playing well, I think it was fun to watch. And Craig, like you kind of started the show saying, probably made it one of the most impressive wins of the year because of what they were faced with. So, but Drew, he made pretty much all of that go, besides, I felt like, a lot of the energy plays that our big fella Bobby Portis was making.
So it's interesting because now tonight, no Bobby Portis, no Giannis. Bobby Portis is now on the health and safety protocol list. So that puts 4 on that list now for Milwaukee. It looks like Chris Middleton has a good shot at returning tonight, which will definitely help this cause. Zion Williamson's out for an extended period of time for New Orleans. So this is one, even as shorthanded as the Bucks are going to be, it looks like they're going to have at least 7 players out again for this quick road trip down to New Orleans. This is still a winnable game, but the style of it's going to change a little bit with Giannis and Portis out. Now the Bucks appear to be going small for sure in this one, Steve.
Yeah, and I'll be very honest. I think if there's one guy you don't want to go small against, especially based on some of the past performances against the Bucks, it's Jonas Valanciunas. And thank God Zion's out, at least for the Bucks' sake.
Yeah.
But Jonas Valanciunas is basically, he's a bully. And I was his teammate with the Toronto Raptors. And every practice, before practice, he's out there with one of the assistant coaches who basically has a tackling dummy or some kind of basketball pad to protect himself, because Jonas is coming through there throwing elbows, putting his shoulder down, and just trying to be a man among boys every chance he gets. And so he puts up massive double-doubles pretty much every game. And I think there's probably an assistant coach in his ear saying, hey, are you going to let these Bucks play small ball on you, and you're not going to be the best player on the court and most dominant? So I see him as a big problem. I think he was before Portis was out. Now with Portis out, you got to envision, like a Thanasis matched up with. But either way, it's an undersized guy. And the Pelicans also feeling pretty good after hitting 61-foot shots. So they seem to have some good things going for them.
Valanciunas is an interesting one for me, because I feel like he's kind of like I put him and like Nikola Vucevic together, like guys like very impressive players that I feel like kind of get lost in the shuffle. Like it's like we knew about him when he was with Toronto, but ultimately in the grand scheme of things, that Toronto team was failed because they ran into LeBron so much.
Right.
But it's like you forget how effective and how quietly he can have a 2012, 2015 game.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think he's maybe a little bit of a byproduct of kind of the way the league has gone, with the three-point shooting. And obviously we've seen it with Steph Curry so much recently. There's been a massive shift away from, what massive human being can we get to be the best player on our team, like a Yao Ming, a Shaq, and a Jonas Valanciunas drafted early in the first round to be a franchise player. All of a sudden the shift happens where it's just more guard play. And like you said, you got a guy who's a heck of a player and he's dominating games and he's having a big impact. But it seems like teams are certainly afraid to give the keys to a guy like that. So, like you said, he has huge games. He's just it's going to be Brandon Ingram's team. There's no doubt he's going to have the ball in his hands. The shooting is going to be perimeter based, and Jonas knows that too. He's down there cleaning up offensive boards and doing whatever he can. So, I mean, that's again what makes him special.
Who's even going to play big for the Bucks tonight? Like, who's going to be there 4 and 5? I mean, Mamu and
do this.
Yeah,
like, I know. No, it's
like you're going to have to see Nora at the 4. I mean, if Thanasis plays, I would assume he'll play some 4. Like, they don't have a lot of muscle left from the guys that are missing.
No, there's definitely not. And I think, to me, that does one of two things. Either you know it going into the game, you're outmatched in that area, and these guys in the NBA like Jonas, they can take over games and be dominant, and they do, or it becomes this like mentality shift where you go, fellas, let's not act like we're going to compete with Jonas. We've got to beat him in a different way. We've got to push the pace. We got to shoot a lot of threes. We got to be perimeter based. And it's a great Mike D'Antoni saying that he used to say to me in timeouts, we would be in a timeout in the New York Knicks huddle, and there'd be the other team, wherever we were playing, taking forever to come out of their huddle. And Mike D'Antoni be looking down, trying to see who is that team putting in coming out of this timeout. D'Antoni would be trying to figure matchups out. And they would take too long, and he would just look at me and he would say, Steve, forget it. I don't care who they put in. As long as you go out there and score more points than the guy you're guarding, I'm going to just leave you in. And so that might have to be the Bucks mentality tonight. Coach Bud just says, fellas, you got to win your matchups, and it's got to be group rebounding and group defense, be in the right spots and be super annoying. And the Bucks, they got those guys, Drew Holiday, Thanasis, they can muck some things up for sure defensively.
That reminds me of back in the George Karl days, man. It seemed like fourth quarter, every time out he took, they'd meet at the court, and then they come walk over and sit down with the players, and he'd start drawing stuff up. And he wouldn't be looking on his board when he was drawing up for his players. He'd be looking down the bench, like this, to try to figure out who is sitting down over there, who's coming in the game, so he could do his matchups. And I always kind of marveled at that, because that's what it was all about for a guy like that. But that just kind of circulated back in my reporting days back then, when we were allowed in those huddles and stuff. But I want to ask you something, just shifting gears just a little bit to Bobby Portis. This is something James and I were discussing. Just randomly, it popped up on our last show, Steve, and it was Bobby Portis's emerging value to a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo, the teammates they have become, winning a championship together, and now they're going to be together for at least 2 more years, including this year. But is he potentially becoming that Scottie Pippen version of a guy to Giannis, because they've been together for a championship and they do complement each other awfully well, and he's got a big important role on this team.
He does, and it's to me it is kind of surprising to think we're having that conversation. If you think back, a full year ago, where Bobby was, does he have a chance to be, the sixth man for this Bucks team? And then it turned into, does he have a chance to be the sixth man of the year? And all of a sudden we're talking about, is he kind of the running mate to Giannis? And I think, the way that he plays, the comparison to like a Scottie Pippen, it makes me think of of the Dennis Rodman effect that he had with those Bulls teams when it was Jordan and Pippen and Rodman. It's like, to have the crazy guy, to have the energy guy, to have the guy who's stealing extra possessions and making big plays. And obviously Bobby Portis's offense compared to Rodman's is night and day. Bobby Portis is clearly better.
Yeah.
But I just think, to your point, to have, when you win a championship, the results speak for themselves. And the fact that what Bobby brought to this team, and it meshed with Giannis, and it worked with Drew and with the entire team, I think there's just so much to be said for that worked, and that's right. And it's so hard to win a championship that, I just think when you hear people say this team is going to win the championship this year, or that team is going to win, and then you watch the finals and the playoffs and you see teams win or lose because a guy like KD stepped on a line when he shot it, or somebody made this little tiny fractional error, and you go, listen, no one knows who's going to win these championships. We know who's got chances, but when it works and when it's right, you do look at guys like Bobby Portis and you go, we're not going to question this. That works. Their chemistry is incredible. What Bobby brings doesn't get in the way of Giannis. What Giannis doesn't get in the way of Drew, and so on. And I think, so in my opinion, I just think the fact that, like you said, they fit so well together, I think the Jordan Pippen, man, those boys were special.
It's a hard comparison, right?
but I love it. And I think, like, to your point, what Bobby brings and the fact that he's getting better, it seems like every day, it tells you if they can mess around and make a push again in a year 2 and show the world, hey, this isn't a fluke.
Yeah.
This wasn't a one-time thing. Now I think you're talking about, hey, he might get that kind of respect.
And that's the hard part for me with this question, is because, like, when you say like the Jordan Pippen kind of comparison teammate wise, like, clearly Chris Middleton is the Pippen, but up to this point this year, Bobby's clearly had, at least in my opinion, a bigger impact. Like, because Chris missed a lot of games and whatnot, but like Bobby's stepping in to start at center, and then not only just stepping in, but his production is far and above what you could have expected. Yeah. So it's almost like impact-wise this year, like you could make that argument. And obviously he's not like the Rodman type, but he does bring that mindset. So and we've talked about this a couple times, Craig and I, the thing that I love the most about this team is that it's hard to make these comparisons because none of these guys do the same thing. None of them. This is, for me, a team that actually makes sense. Like, you have to give John Horst so much credit because every single piece that he's brought in has served a specific role. And like you said, there's no overlap. So what Bobby does not get in the way of Chris or Drew or Giannis, and vice versa. So it's interesting to kind of look at this team because we're, especially in this new like super team era, it just feels like so often we're looking at these teams and we're saying, like the Lakers, like how are LeBron and Westbrook going to work?
Right.
When it was the Clippers, how are Paul George and Kawhi going to maximize their ability? They do the same thing. LeBron and Wade, they do the same thing. So it's like there's this constant figuring out of how that's going to work out. That never had to happen here. Yeah. They don't do the same thing. You're not in my way. When it's my turn, I do what I do. When it's your turn, you do what you do, and I won't be in the way.
I agree. And, to me, that is the most beautiful part about team sports and about basketball is you can take a sheet of paper and you can write 5 guys' names down and you can go, now that's the best team right there. But then when you get out on the court, if they don't, like you're saying, complement each other and raise each other's levels around them, they're not as good as they are on paper. And then you take a group, like you're saying, that fits so perfectly together that I think about this example of, I play with Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire. I play with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. We're talking about 4 of the greatest players, most dominant players of all time. And yet when they were teammates, they never could really complement and raise each other's levels to the point that they could win a championship. And I think you could argue that a Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire, a Russell and a Kevin, those 2 pairs could be better than a Giannis and a Chris Middleton on paper.
In a 2-on-2, they'd never lose.
Right. Except for that doesn't matter unless you can complement each other and be, like you just described, in your own lane and benefiting the guy next to you. And it's a beautiful thing, like you said, when it's effortless, when Drew Holiday just happens to love to find guys on the break instead of pushing it up like some point guards and waiting till a guy's close to the basket and throwing it to them so they make sure they get their assist. When it comes naturally, and Giannis has got to get a lot of credit for that because you can tell he sets that tone of nothing is more important than winning. And so I think to me, Giannis is the guy that sets that mentality tone and everybody kind of falls in line. And he's selfless. Giannis does do what he does, but he sets that unselfish tone that it's winning above everything else.
So this week in NBA history, Steph Curry becomes the new 3-point king in 3-point makes. passing Ray Allen. He did it at the Garden in New York, your old stomping grounds where you had you were at the peak of your career, my man. James does some quick digging before the show and shares with me that you are number 9 on the all-time three-point accuracy list in the NBA. What does that mean to you, and what does it mean to be on that list, and then seeing where Curry has taken three-point shooting? You haven't been out of the league that long, Steve, and it's already dramatically different and more of a weapon in the NBA than ever before.
Really is. One of the crazy stats is 10 years ago, there was not a team in the NBA making more than 10 threes a game. 10 years ago. And now today, there's not a team making less than 10 threes per game. So it's like in just a decade's time, and there's no question, like you're referencing Steph Curry, he has everything to do with that, because the three-point shot specifically went from a don't settle, throw it to the big fella, don't rush the threes, we'll get them on inside out plays, to hold on now, Golden State just won how many championships shooting mostly three balls?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, this massive shift happened where some of the analytics were already out there, and there was these undercurrents of three-point shooting is good, but no one had really won championships shooting three-pointers. And everybody said, well, you live or die by threes. You live or die by threes. And now everybody will tell you, you die if you don't shoot threes, and that's it. So to watch Steph set that record and do it at the Garden, you're right. It was, I mean, with Ray there and Reggie there, I mean, that was so special. And, you know, for me, like you said, as a part of like that top 10 percentage in history list, the thing I'm most proud of is that I'm the only 6'10" guy on that list. I'm the tallest guy on that list. And there's so many guys that have been shooting threes, but I've always believed, my dad always coached me and believed, you know, do what you love and then find a way to be successful at it. And I loved shooting half court shots and bombs while my dad was running his practice at Brown Deer High School. He never told me to put my back to the basket. I loved shooting the three ball and always thought it was the best shot in basketball. And now the world has come around, and I just love the fact that I was the tall guy that was always out there bombing when I was at St. Margaret Marian in third grade, and people were like, put him inside. What is he doing? Who's this guy's parents? And now I get to look back and go, oh, well, you know, I guess three-point shooting analytically and according to Steph Curry, it is the right thing to do.
How kind of cool is that, or cool has it been for you to kind of, because you were on the end of that transition to kind of people kind of realizing how effective the three could be. Yeah. But how cool has it been kind of since you left the league just to see that shift? Do you think it's good, or do you think there should be a little more big man play?
You know, like you said, I was drafted in 2006 by Daryl Morey. So like the king of basketball analytics. And so I definitely was the beginning of that, where the analytics were a big part of why I got drafted and who I got drafted to, but we still weren't allowed to shoot. I think I was making in my 5th season as many 3-pointers as it was. Me and Kevin Durant shared most 3-pointers made per game that year, but I was playing like half the minutes. So I was just getting up bombs, and people thought it was irresponsible. And so I do appreciate now the fact that it's just simply not looked at as irresponsible. It's looked at as an incredible weapon, and really the only way you can win at a high level. So I love seeing that side of it. I think the part that is lost in the purity part of basketball is you shouldn't be shooting threes to shoot three for the sake of shooting threes. You should be taking the best shot down on offense every possession. But if you build a team with the right guys who their strengths are shooting the three ball, along with guys who their strengths are getting in the paint and drawing the defense so that you can get open threes, I think there's a little bit lost in that part of it, that shooting threes isn't just shooting them. It's the art of how you get an open one. So there's guys that shoot them, and there's guys like Drew Holiday that get in the paint and are unselfish and look. And there's guys like Chris Paul that are always trying to draw that second defender so they can see where it's coming from and find the open shooter. And so I think there's more to it than shooting it. And I think that's starting to really be seen more by the fan. I think it's well understood by the analytics department, kind of where the 3-pointers come from. But I think there's now becoming a greater understanding as to how the 3-point makes are produced.
So here's a good one for you. Now I'm gonna make you think on your think tank here a little bit. So Curry gets a couple of Rolex watches for Draymond Green and Andre Iguodala for continuing to give him the ball, right? So he gets some Rolexes. So I'm thinking to myself, here are two of your teammates. Here,
Sure.
we're live. What now, if we were to feed you the ball and we're taking good care of you right now and making you like a big time TV star, like what would be the equivalent for Rolexes for us? What would you get us?
Oh boy. I mean, well, knowing the kind of gentleman that you both are, it might be a fine bottle of rare Blantons, or maybe some fine Cuban cigars. Look.
So we need to keep setting you up, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Hey, and I'll be honest, if you get a few huge sponsors on here and you guys start bringing me back and writing me big old checks, I wouldn't put the Rolexes as an impossibility.
Oh, nice.
Well, now we have a bar. We know what to reach for.
Hey, you got to love that, though, don't you? Like, Steph's
yeah.
just so clear that he recognizes and understands kind of how it's all happening and where it comes from. Like, he knows his guys have so much to do with his success. He knows the world will never see them as it, but he's making sure he tells them,
yeah,
I got a Rolex for you because I know you're getting me open. You're looking for me. Kind of like you see in football, it's like Tom Brady gifting some of his linemen, like, you're saving my life every night. I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for you. You got to love those stories, because those guys got to really, really appreciate that gesture, that they're being given a little bit of love for what they've been a part of, even if everybody doesn't see it.
Have you been on a team where one of the superstars has handed out gifts either to you guys or has done something pretty special like that? Or how rare is this?
I think at that level, I'd call it rare. I think I've seen, guys like John Wall give the entire team, well, you give me a $44 million contract per year, I'll probably start throwing some Rolexes out there too. The richer I am, the more generous I am. I don't know. That seems to be fair.
I'm not generous at all then.
No.
So here's my question, Steve.
Yeah.
Steph is shooting 43.1% on his career.
Mm-hmm.
You shot 43.0%. So you're only 1% off. So my question is
0.1%, James.
0.1. Yeah. So if you were still playing, we were to extrapolate those games, Steve Novak has potentially shot good enough to be the greatest 3-point shooter of all time. You just needed more opportunities, it looks like.
So I'll just be extremely honest here. Okay. My job was to shoot threes. And it was like, yeah. I lived it. I tried to stay in rhythm and feel good every day so I could continue to make as many threes as I could. The disadvantage I had was I feel like the power of it's the right thing to do versus the wrong thing to do is so real. I think I had in my head that because the coaches weren't all for it and the league wasn't all for it, it's not the right thing to do. And I think that burdens you a little bit. Steph has the advantage of, you better shoot that three every single time. The power of, like, if you're a 7-footer, you better get out there and shoot threes. Yeah. Whereas before, a 7-footer was taken out of the game if you shot it. So I think the percentage increase to being told it's the right thing is so real. It's like the end of a shot clock. You have the ball. Yeah. There's 1 second left. You're probably going to make that shot a much better, higher percentage because you have no choice. It's the right thing. On the other side of it, Steph Curry has so much more to do than just shoot threes. He had to run the team, averaging 10, 12 assists per game some seasons. He's got to make sure he's, able to play 35, 40 minutes a night. And the fact that the number one defender and the defense was built around stopping him every single night, and he still has been able to shoot the ball at that historic of a clip, I think it just shows why he's so overwhelmingly the greatest shooter of all time. He had the burden of running the team as well as going against the top defender and team defense, double teams, triple teams, and playing big minutes. And he breaks the 3-point makes record in pretty much half as many games as Ray. who was number 2. So, I mean, it's staggering, the numbers. So yes, James, I think to answer your question, I'm clearly the greatest shooter of all time. Okay, maybe Steph's just a touch better.
What would have happened if you would have took a fast break half quarter?
Okay. Yeah. No. In my dreams, some nights when I go to bed, I still do take half-court transition threes with no one back on defense.
Yeah.
But
you might have got cut back then.
No doubt about it. No doubt.
It's not just a bench. Get him out of here.
Right. He's got to go. He's a bad influence.
Hey, I just want to ask you this, because the thing that I marvel most with Steph Curry is his trick shots, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know anybody that will go halfway up into the stands and just turn around and take a shot and it's perfect. Yeah. He'll do it all over the court. He'll go behind the bench. He'll go behind the basket. How often did you do that, if any at all? I mean, this guy is having the time of his life right now. That has to do something with how successful he is on the court.
You're totally right. And I think every kid that is a great shooter, that turns into a great shooter, became that because they love being in the gym. And you don't just shoot practice shots every day for your whole life. You love being in the gym. You mess around, you shoot over the back of the backboard, you climb up on the balcony, you throw it 100 feet off the stage. And so I think, to me, the positive association with the game of basketball and shooting is what allowed me to become the great shooter I became, because I love being in the gym with my dad. I love shooting trick shots. I love shooting half-court shots. And then, because I spent so much time in the gym, I had an edge. And once I had an edge, then it's like, then I started to work at it. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing with Steph is, obviously he grew up with his dad, Dell. He was in the gym. His association with basketball was always so positive. He saw his dad and he loved being around it and around the game and all the positive things that it brought. And then all of a sudden he had an edge. And then he started to work at it and he became who he became. But there's no question there's this God-given blessing of touch that Steph has, that I have, that all the great shooters were blessed with. That means you're not going to the NBA for sure. You're blessed with an advantage. But I think that when you watch Steph shoot it out of the stands and he's not using correct form, he'll just heave it and he makes it. It shows you that Steph has this incredible, not arrogance, but like confidence and belief that he can make it anywhere. Yeah. That's different. And there's no doubt. You can't make those shots unless you think you're going to make them. Right. And I think most people go to the bleachers, they stand 100 feet away and they go like, I got no chance of making this. And I think Steph, he has to be thinking, I'm making every single one of these. Because otherwise he never would. And I think that's what makes him just so unique, the way he.
Well, now he's just putting on a show. Like he's doing it for the kids, and it's just clearly he knows he can make those shots.
Yeah, it's incredible because it's an art. There's no science to those shots. You're standing in the bleachers 1,000 feet away and the guy's doing it on a regular basis. I'm like, that's an art. Yeah. The guy just he wills it to happen with touch and with feel and with confidence. And I mean, it's hard to mimic, maybe impossible, but it's fun to watch.
All right, my man, we're gonna let you go. We appreciate your time. It was fun catching up with you, just shooting the bull here and talking a little Bucks basketball, talking NBA stuff, your career. Hope to do it again down the road when we can corral a sponsor or two, so we can compensate you.
Start looking for watches.
Well, call Rolex. I'll see if they have any sponsorships available for the next fiscal year.
You got any Christmas shopping you're doing this weekend, or you're focusing solely on the big game on Saturday night?
A little bit of both. We got a little Christmas shopping. We're buying for a few families, and the wife is actually setting up a little Bucks charity event now, doing some things. And of course, we're banking on Santa showing up for the Novak kids too. We're still threatening the naughty list, but I got a feeling they're on the nice list, so I think they're going to be getting a few things too, as long as Amazon keeps doing their job. And looking forward to the Christmas matchup against Boston too. We kind of did the debate, like, should we go to the game because it's national exclusive? Should we go? Do you guys want to stay home by the fire and just watch? And my son looked at me. He was like, no, we're going to the game. So
here's a little gift to you, Dad.
Yeah, here's a gift to you. Well, at least we know who's running the show in the Novak house. It's not the parents.
Yeah, for sure, man. Join the club. Hey, thanks, buddy. I won't be with you on Saturday night, but I'll see you. I'll see you next week. And the three of us team together pretty good. We call each other the Three Amigos. James produces a lot of our shows for us, and it's always a pleasure catching up with Steve and working and stuff. And you have a good one. All right.
You guys too. You're the best.
All right. See you later, Steve.
See you guys.
All right, that's Steve Novak joining us, and we appreciate that. It was fun catching up with him on several topics, because it's always good, James, picking the brain of somebody that's been around for such a long time, and Steve obviously does a great job on our show. The thing that I love about guys like him and a lot of the guys on our broadcast is they love to dig deep and not just talk about and show what they have done in their career, but really how it gets done and how they got to where they are and why there are so many, current players that are so relatable here at this point. And I like that talk with him and Steph Curry. I liked your stat you dug up too about, they're both right there together in accuracy. It's amazing.
And that's kind of the thing too. Like Steve was such a good shooter, is such a good shooter. And like, I think people sometimes forget, like, because of guys like Steph that are so kind of just next level, we forget that second tier prior to Steph was the best tier of shooters we had ever seen.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? It's still incredibly impressive, and it's such an asset for us just in the way that the game has changed. Like who better could you want to kind of, tap their mind on the game than one of the 10 greatest percentage-wise shooters in the league. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
So
it's
it
good
just really
stuff.
works out. And we like him, so he's an all right dude.
He's all right. Although he'd rank a little higher if we did get him to give us those Rolexes.
That's true. I mean,
if
we could probably get him into. We could probably get him as the greatest shooter of all time if he gets those Rolexes.
Let me just say this: he goes to New York a lot. And I know guys that open up their coat pockets and they're all lined with watches. That might be what we're getting.
I mean, hey, that was his old stomping ground, so he should know the area well. Get us a good fake.
I'm telling you, he still gets all his suits from New York, so he's a sharp dresser. So here we are. We're almost to the end of our show, and we haven't talked Packers, which is we talked Packers on Monday. Obviously, they're taking on the Ravens on Sunday. Lot of questions, I guess, at this point, period, across all of sports right now is who's going to wind up on a COVID list and not being able to play. The Bucs obviously are facing that this week. So many teams are. This is still a game out there that is very winnable for Green Bay. I think that the greatest thing is they're in the driver's seat to take this number one seed. They got 4 regular season games yet to go. What are your thoughts for Sunday?
Well, I just looked it up. I saw a tweet from Ian Rappaport that Lamar Jackson isn't practicing today, putting potentially Tyler Huntley in line to start. It's the first time all year he hasn't practiced all week, so it doesn't look too good. Looks like an ankle injury.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, if Tyler Huntley is the starting quarterback, this shouldn't be an issue.
Right.
But they still have weapons. You still got to worry about Mark Andrews. That guy eats up the middle of the field. So I mean, it looks good. It looks like they should get out of this with a win. But it is the NFL, and you never know.
So that game starts at 3:25 on Sunday. So we'll be talking about that a little bit on Monday, but we also have another guest coming in. Tim Dillard is going to join us on the show Monday, and we're going on at 4:00 in the afternoon that day. So I'm going to have a happy hour drink with me, I think, because it's going to be 5:00 Eastern somewhere, and we usually do our shows in the morning. So we refrain. We have Fruity Pebbles instead,
Fruity
obviously.
Pebbles, yeah. Fruity Pebbles and Diet Coke.
Yeah, you got it.
No, it should be fun. It'll be good to see to hear from Tim again. I haven't seen him since the end of the season, so it'd be good to catch up and see what's going on.
Yeah, he said he's doing some kind of a daily workout, and it seems It seems through his text that it's an all-day thing, but just knowing Tim, it's probably not.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's staying in shape again from the just in case somebody needs me.
Well, with the lockout, everyone's probably thinking to himself, maybe they'll need some replacement players.
Who knows? So that'll be fun. We'll look forward to that Monday. Again, we'll be live at 4:00 for that one. So good stuff. You got what do you got? Christmas shopping yet to do, or are you all done?
No, like Steve said, the last Amazon packages came through, and now I just got to wrap them. So that's the fun part.
That is impressive, man. Well done. Well done.
This is an anomaly. I am not ever done before the 24th. So
I'm glad I have a good influence on you.
Right.
All right, pal. Have a good weekend. We'll see you back Monday. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you Monday at 4:00 for another version of Coshun Cast. Have a good one.